Welcome to P2F Fighting. I'm James, and today we're going to talk about wrestling, collegiate style wrestling. I'm going to talk about freestyle because that's what I did. I'm making this video from my own perspective. Okay, I haven't looked up nothing. I haven't done any research about wrestling coming from Greece and all of this and that, the Olympics and all of that. It's not. I'm basing this on how good is it self-defense wise, as far as my own perspective. I've wrestled. I wrestled from 5 years old to 18. Every year I wrestled at some point, and even in college we had a little wrestling club at my college because they had wrestling and they got rid of it because Title IX, and then so we had to make a little club for guys that just wanted to wrestle, that came out of high school wrestling and wanted to continue wrestling. So this is not about WWE, Raw or SmackDown. This is real collegiate style. But I'm only talking about freestyle. I didn't do much Greco-Roman, so I don't know a whole lot about Greco-Roman. I tried it, but it wasn't, the lock-in, it wasn't my thing. I was a little too small, and so it wasn't. I didn't think it favored me, so I stuck with freestyle. Now, as far as wrestling in self-defense, I can give this score pretty fast. Okay, I'm gonna give wrestling an 8, the same as I give Muay Thai, and I'm gonna tell you why. It's very easy. I was a bouncer for about 6 years, and I think that every single fight that I got into, which were a lot of fights, I ended up slamming someone or taking them down. It's just kind of my style. Everyone has a style of the way they fight, and I will tell you, I took karate for 8 years straight. Then I mixed in some jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I took some boxing for a couple years. And this is all in my 20s. This is all from 18 to 30 I'm talking about, when I was really doing the bouncing, the college, and all the fighting I was doing, winning world titles, national titles, all this stuff. Even though I was 7-time national champion in karate, and world champion and international champion on the USA team, you would think that when I would get in a fight, I would do karate, but it didn't happen very often. Actually, somebody would throw a punch, I'd duck under him and shoot for a takedown. It almost every time. Even in bars where you think people, oh, they're going to jump you, they're going to kick you, I kept my back to the wall, or I had my team around me, and they would square off everybody else. They'd keep everybody else back. And when I went one-on-one with somebody, I would say 9 out of 10 times, a couple punches would get thrown, and they would run into me, and I would just drop and shoot for a takedown, and I'd get them on the ground, and then I would punch their face in, and then I'd drag them out the door by their feet. And the point of that is not to puff my own self up, but to show you that even with karate as my base, I was really good at it, and boxing that I was currently learning at that time, I still went back to wrestling. When the situation was serious, I went back to wrestling. Even when I started jiu-jitsu out here in California, I trained at Kong Submission Academy, Undisputed, 10th Planet. I trained at all these gyms. Every single time I spar someone, I would go straight to wrestling. I hated being on bottom, which is why I got armbarred a lot. Any wrestler who's tried jiu-jitsu will understand what I'm saying there. If you were a wrestler trying to convert over to jiu-jitsu, I guarantee you got armbarred a million times. Because I got armbarred so much because I hated being on bottom, and I try to push them off me, and it would lead me into getting armbarred. So that's just a thing that goes with it. You have to switch your mindset. But anytime the heat was on and punches were coming at my face, and feet were coming at my face, or weapons were coming at my face, my first thought, nullify his hands by taking him to the ground. Get close, maybe eat a punch coming in, so what? Grab him, slam him. And I won 9 out of 10 fights. I didn't win them all, but I won a whole bunch of them with that same strategy. So the effectiveness of wrestling, so it has a different effect for grapplers in general. Some of you do jiu-jitsu. I know some guys who do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I'm going to rate that one soon. And they will say Brazilian jiu-jitsu gets a higher rating than wrestling. And then wrestlers will disagree. There are two different aims. Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you're on the ground already and you're learning how to fight from the ground. In wrestling, you're taking each other down and you're learning how to control that person. It's 100% about control. That's all it's about, is control. And the thing about wrestling is, it's really, if you want to say like a macho type sport, very, very aggressive. It's like two opposing forces hitting and one's gonna fall, and that's it. There's no slickness to wrestling. There's not much finesse. I mean, there are slick wrestlers that can really get in there, snatch you for an ankle leg or do a duck under and get behind you. But for example, with jiu-jitsu, you have some guys that are very slick and tricky. There are some I've watched, like Kyle Chambers from 10th Planet. That guy is slick. I've watched a bunch of his matches because I follow him on Instagram, and you know, he'll sit down on you and he'll do a couple rolls and he's got your leg in a pretzel, just your leg from the knee down. He can somehow twist the bone that doesn't twist. That dude is incredible. So you have slick guys in jiu-jitsu that will catch you in a choke or catch you in an arm hold or something. PJ Barch is another one who's pretty smooth. He wrestled too. He also wrestled, but he's been able to tailor his jiu-jitsu game too to be very smooth with his techniques. Wrestling is not smooth. Well, not for me. It was not. It was just wham, and someone falls, and that's how it went. And so it's about who wants it more. Wrestling is a whole lot about who wants it more. That's what it's about. And there isn't this thing where, oh, I'm gonna lay on him and wear him out, or I'm gonna sit on the bottom and just hold him and eventually he'll get tired. You don't want to be on the bottom in wrestling. You want to pin the person. That is the ultimate of I out-manhooded you. I forced you to the ground and held you there until you were pinned, and I beat you by putting both your shoulders on the mat. It's control. It's 100% control. And I think that's great for the street because I used it. I always used it. I always was able to take someone down and keep them there, moving left and moving on each side of their body, doing going under them, half Nelsons, flipping them over. Oh man, there's so many moves and I can't think of the names of them right now, but there's so many moves you can do when you're on someone's back, and you can just grab that ankle, pull it up, force them forward onto their face, or they're trying to hold themselves up, and you smack that arm out and just flatten them out. Then you add the jiu-jitsu, you go put the hooks in, and then you keep them pinned to the ground. And then when you add punches to that, it's like there's another style I'm gonna do, pancration. It's like pancration. It's grappling with punches. I mean, you get a guy down, if you can shoot, take him down, and then once you have control of him, then you start working on them. I mean, look at Khabib Nurmagomedov. That was his entire game, mauling people. That's wrestling with punches. That's what that was. He didn't have any super great submissions. He would take you down, he'd force you against a fence, take you down, and hold you there, and then beat the hell out of you while he had you against the fence until you gave up. And he learned a few chokes. I didn't see him doing any flying arm bars or go-go platas or anything like that. He would just get close enough, take you down, force you to stay there, and beat the hell out of you the whole time while he's talking to you and Dana and half the crowd because he knows you can't get up. This is wrestling. It's great for the street. It's great, especially for one-on-one encounters where there's no weapons involved. You take someone down and you've got control of them. You know how to keep them down. And once they're under control, they know it too. Your enemy knows it too. They know they can't get up. They've tried to get up and you're keeping them in place. And then when they get rough with you, give them a couple and they stay there. I think wrestling's a great style. I think there's another style of wrestling, an offshoot. It's called catch wrestling. I've started to pay attention to catch wrestling. I really, really want to take that style. I've been watching videos on it. They call it the mean side of grappling, the dark side of grappling. And it's when I compare it to jiu-jitsu, they're pretty different. Jiu-jitsu has the slickness, the finesse. Like you could be doing movements and all of a sudden you're caught in a choke and you're tapping and you don't even know what happened because it was smooth. But catch wrestling is very much like wrestling. You're using pain to make someone submit. The moves that they do are pain moves. They're playing off your pain. Like can openers and cross faces that rip your nose off. Like the moves they do are painful. And I think that's wonderful, especially for the street. Giving someone tons of pain, I could care less. If you want to attack me, then you should eat all the pain you can handle and more. But I think that if you want to learn something along with a striking style, wrestling is a great option. You learn if somebody comes at you and you don't feel like you can deal with their hands, then you can bait them in and shoot for the takedown. Some of the things you learn, like taking people down, like sprawling. Sprawling is such a big deal. Sprawling is a big deal. People say a lot of fights go to the ground. It's true, some do. Not all do. Not all do, but some do. But if you know how to sprawl, and if you know how to do a whizzer, these kind of things to keep your opponent below you and under you with their face in the ground, this is great stuff all the time for self-defense. So wrestling, just 100% a great style to learn for self-defense. I don't know who teaches wrestling that way. I'm trying to think of if I can think of anyone who teaches wrestling in that fashion. When I wrestled and when I was in college and I wanted to wrestle, I would go back to my high school. While I was in college, I would sometimes go back to my high school and train with the high school kids just to stay in shape and just to get sharp again. I don't know anyone who teaches wrestling as a self-defense style unless it's catch wrestling, which I don't know any around here in San Diego. There might be some. If there is, leave me a comment because I don't know where they are. That's something I want to take. I'm highly interested in taking. But yeah, 8 out of 10, wrestling. That's one style that you should do if you want to learn a complete style for the street. No, there's no punching. It's all takedowns, control, pinning someone. But you combine that with a striking style and you've got yourself a very solid foundation for defending yourself in any, no matter where the situation goes, you'll have some kind of defense. So that's my take on it. Like and share, subscribe, and holla at your boy.